The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Good evening and welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show tonight. Joining me once again on the Coach's Corner panel is John Hughes and Jim Endicott. They're going to be joining me here in just a moment, and I'm going to give you all of the scoop on both of those gentlemen here in just a second. But also, I'm going to be joined tonight, and I'm really excited to have this gentleman come back. He hasn't been on for about a year or so, but he's been on multiple times, many times actually. Tonight's featured guest is going to be Dave Shultz, the CEO of NextLinks. And he's got a lot to talk about tonight, so you definitely want to make sure you tune in for that because it's going to be a really great second half of the show. But don't forget, if you want to watch this or any of the other previously aired episodes, you can subscribe to the iGolf Sports YouTube channel. You can also catch us on Spotify.com or any of the other video networks. Or if you prefer to just sit back and listen to the audio version, it's available at Spreaker.com or basically wherever you listen to podcasts. And again, don't forget to subscribe and get notified as new episodes drop weekly. And if you're struggling with your game, come join the growing number of Golf Tips Premium members. We have 3 annual membership levels available, silver, gold, or platinum, and just choose one that fits your budget. Once you become a Golf Tips Premium member, you'll gain access to our premium instructional tips from our top 25 instructors, the latest golf news and equipment product reviews, plus insight into top travel destinations just in time to book your next buddy trip. Lastly, as a Golf Tips Premium member, you'll receive special discounts from our many premium partners. So register today at golftipsmag.com. All right, let me introduce the guys and we'll get into tonight's discussion. First up, of course, is John Hughes. He is a PGA Master Professional and past president of the North Florida PGA section and a recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Professional Development Award and also 2009 and 2023 North Florida PGA Teacher and Coach of the Year. And he's a Golf Digest Best in State Instructor from 2023 to present. And also a senior contributing editor at Golf Tips top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine. Also coming on the panel again tonight is Jim Endicott. He's currently a PGA education faculty member and a PGA specialized professional in both teaching and coaching. He's a former Golf Digest Schools general manager and 7-time PGA award winner, including the 2022 North Florida PGA section Patriot Award and 2 North Florida PGA Youth Development Awards. And he too is also a Golf Tips top 25 instructor and contributor to the magazine as well. So guys, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Great to be here. Thank you, Ted.
I appreciate it, both of you. And we were just talking offline here just a second ago and saying that you guys have only been on once together earlier in the season. I was surprised. I thought you would have been on a little bit more, but I don't know whether there's a in behind the scene brawl going on between you two, or if the love fest still continues. I don't know. What do you say, guys?
The love fest is there. It's just Central Time versus Eastern Time. He's got to catch up.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So do you, Ted, for that matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You know,
wait a minute. I think he's in the wrong time zone, isn't he, Ted?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. That's exactly right. You're in the wrong time.
I'm going to move west.
Yeah.
And
then you really mess us up. All right, we got a great show. We're gonna get into discussion here, but I just want to remind everybody too. I sort of alluded to it last show. We're only going to have a few more episodes, a few more broadcasts this season. I've got one more this month, and we'll break for Thanksgiving, of course, and then just a couple in the beginning of December, and then we'll be breaking and then starting back up with a full broadcast back in early March of next year as I get ready. For a lot of different things, including heading down to the PGA show in the end of January. So I'm excited about that. Didn't get to make it last year, so I'm hoping I get the wheels going and everything, and I'll be heading down to this January to check out what's new and exciting down at the PGA show in Orlando. So I'm excited about that. All right, I'm going to start things off here. again, I think this is kind of an interesting discussion that we're going to have tonight. And John, I'm going to start with you since you were late to the party tonight. I'm going to throw you under the bus first. I'm
Where's the
just kidding.
bus?
So I
I'll
want to get
drive.
your, yeah, exactly. I want to get your thoughts on this. First off, has golf instruction changed generally in any of the following areas? There's just a couple of areas, individual and or group lessons. And if so, how? And then I have a follow-up question for you on that as well. So has it changed from when you first started getting into business, how individual and group lessons are being taught nowadays, as opposed to when you first got into the business?
Well, that's a great question. You haven't stumped me, but I need some time to think about it, so I'll go through my formalities. Jim, good to see you again. Always learn something with you. Ted, what an opportunity for this question. Um, I'm going to have to say everything evolves. When I'm talking to my clients, I always tell them, hey, life evolves. Your golf game evolves. If coaching and teaching had not evolved with the changing of technologies, I think there's a big change going on right now. I just got done reading an NGF article that came out today about indoor simulators. That it's tripled. The number has tripled in the past 3 years alone.
Yeah.
I think a lot has evolved. I don't like the word change. I think where we're going as an industry and where we're going as individual coaches is not just trying to keep up. We're trying to set the pace as we always do, but from a group setting, those groups have become sometimes bigger, but I would say smaller in content, very, very concentrated in content versus very broad. And we're starting to see a lot more people do groups for not only from a coach's standpoint of view, the efficiency of the revenue production, but also it just makes you a better instructor. You've got to get to the point quicker with a
Yep.
group. And I think what we're seeing with individuals is, at least in my mind, a big chasm. We have people who are committed to their game. They want to make themselves better. The lifestyle commitment, the improvement commitment, the travel commitment, just the commitment every day or every week to play or practice. It's roughly the same. Where I see the drop off is the middle, where I see a lot of people who are totally committed or totally uncommitted.
Yeah.
And that's changing. I think if I was to say change, I think the technology and the instantaneous gratification of what a top tracer or a TrackMan range does has altered the landscape so much that we as coaches evolving and adopting to it is a must, more so now than say when video cameras came out. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, what was it? Probably a 5 to 10 year coverage for everybody to get on board with video.
Yeah.
We're just
No
moving
doubt.
much faster with that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. And my follow-up really, I'm going to pass this on because you covered a lot of stuff here. I'm going to give this second sort of follow-up. Jim, you're welcome to offer any thoughts. But what about you personally? How you provide instruction? Has it changed over the years? You know, John obviously touched on a few things, but has it changed for you as well? And if so, what were some of the key areas that you've changed your instruction over the years from what you've done in the past?
I think
Or, as John said, evolved. I'm sorry.
yeah, as it's evolved, I think the what John's talking about, the information that we have at our disposal to help us deliver the information. And what I mean by that is we're able to gather how to from different areas where John mentioned video, and that was an evolution, and that kind of took us to a different level of delivery. Launch monitors, simulators, those sorts of things are giving us other information in a different way. And what I mean by different way, not necessarily other information, but information in a different way that we can convey it. In the past, and for years in my teaching, we always taught simply what we saw the ball doing.
Mhm.
Now we can see what the ball is doing, but we also have information over here from launch monitors confirming that information. In other words, the physics of hitting a golf ball hasn't changed. Our
Mm.
delivery of it has changed. And to say what we've done in programming that's different, years ago, it was very, very common for people to come for a week-long intensive program at a golf school. We'd have 40 people at a golf school, 6 hours a day of instruction, play golf in the afternoon. That's kind of gone by the wayside. And now it's more, as John said, individualized to here's what your goals are. Here's what your time commitment is. Here's what your ability to be focused in this is. And we're going to tailor a program around you. Where we used to put the program out and they came. The group idea has evolved from that to now even more group instruction on the golf course. Years ago, it was almost taboo to take and put 4 people on the golf course of different skill levels. Now it's become kind of cool, if you will. In other words, the newer player can learn something from the more experienced player, and the more experienced player can see how a new player is learning, and it helps them to understand their own learning process as well. So taking them out on the golf course, I think, has become a much larger component of the group business versus come here, we're going to spend an hour and teach you how to chip the golf ball. Come here, let's take you on the golf course and let's apply how to chip that golf ball. Let's apply it in different situations. How do you use that technique out of the woods and actually put them in that setting? That's becoming more and more prevalent, I think, in the group world.
Yeah, and you raised a really interesting point too, as you talk about where really the students now coming with what it is that they want, and it's not so much us putting a plan out and saying, okay, here's what you're going to do and here's how you need to do it. I mean, certainly there's going to be some of that still, but they're basically coming with what they're, their expectations, what they're looking to get out of this experience between coach and student. And as opposed to just putting out a methodology or a specific mindset, that's really changed a lot. The student is now just because of exposure through technology and as we've talked about many times before, social media and that sort of thing, they're now sort of taking the wheel, if you will, a little bit by saying, okay, this is really what I want. I'm not interested in the big groups, as you said, going to the big golf schools and things like that. I want something a little bit more specific to me. This is my game. I don't care about what John's doing over here or Ted's doing over here. I'm interested in my game. So what can we work on and how can we get that improved? So you're right. I think that's how things have expanded a lot in some areas and how it's different from what we've done, maybe 20, 30 years ago. So great answers. Always get some great insight from both of you. And also, I think that it's important, as John put it, evolving is really what we need to do. It's not just so much, it's not about changing and things like that. It's really about how do we evolve at our craft and become more relevant? Because again, if you sort of stick with the status quo, then you get to a point where you stagnate and you're not really moving forward. So great points. John, I'm coming back to you. And this one is, I think you touched on it a little bit, but I want you to touch even more on it. And that is given how, yeah, really, I'm not even going to go there. Given how much time, limitations, it's a busy world, everybody's online to, how much time should a student expect to invest to see realistic changes in both their swing and their game? So what would be an acceptable amount of time that they could allot to see realistic changes? Because again, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to twist that question and say, what is it that you're trying to get out of it? And now, based on that, let's tell you how much time you need to invest.
Right.
Because that, how many times do you do that every day, Jim? I do it every day. I'll have someone, I want this, and I'm only willing to do X. Sometimes they don't even know what they're willing to do or can do. So it's literally breaking down, what are your goals? What are your expectations? Where do you want to be in 2 months, 2 years, whatever the case may be? And then I'm always using a comparison to a more committed golfer and how many hours they spend dedicated to certain things and try to put it in perspective for somebody. I'm also asking them what their life priorities are. And right away, if somebody lists 4, 5, 6, 7 life priorities and then they list golf, I'm like, whoa, time out, time out.
Yeah.
Let's compare this to what you just told me your goals are. This is not realistic. So before we can even come up with a time, oh, you got to devote 20 minutes to this and 40 minutes to
Sure.
that, all that has to be hashed out, all of it. Because without hashing it out, we're all guilty as coaches of providing erroneous information because we don't have it all. We haven't asked the right questions. But more importantly, the golfer hasn't asked the right questions of himself yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, and that's really it. Again, it goes back to what I was just saying a second ago. They have to define what it is that they want, and again, if they got 5 or 6 other things on the plate, and golf is way down on the list, then if they've given you a bunch of things that they want to change and they want to improve on, those schedules may not work and be realistic. So again, yeah, I think it's very important. I think the conversation, it really boils down to, I think one of the biggest changes, I'm going to go back to what I first asked both of you. And as I think the biggest thing is we have to really look at the initial conversation with a student. And that has to be given a priority. I mean, we've always do reviews and we always talk with them and that, but I think that has become even more important now based on what you guys have both just said, than it ever has before. Because again, the student coach relationship has changed a lot, I think, in more recent years, because now they're looking for, again, as we've all talked about, a more customized experience, whereas they don't necessarily want to be lumped in with the rest of the sheep. So they're looking for something. So that conversation has to be had right up front and has to be laid out and carved out as to what it is that they're really looking for. And if they're willing to put time in, what are they willing to give up over here if they are willing to do that at all? So that conversation becomes extremely important in the beginning, because that sets the tone, as you pointed out, John, is we want to make sure the information we're giving them is going to match what it is that they're looking for and is going to be able to be done. Go ahead if
And
you have a follow-up.
the other thing that goes along with that, just to follow it up, is an old Harvey Penick quote that I was reminded of a couple of months ago about everybody wanting to take the whole bottle of aspirin versus just one aspirin. When we as coaches are trying to provide, well, here's this and here's this and here's this, and do it X amount of time here and X amount of time there. I think what I've seen over the years, particularly with the people who want something right away, is they're trying to swallow that whole bottle of aspirin at once. And the science is out there. We're horrible at multitasking. We are not multitaskers. Can you concentrate on one thing? And let's say you've got little to no time to practice, but you have some realistic goals based on your practice. You should be looking at it. Let me get one thing. Let me do one thing and one thing only. Make it as big as I can. Make it very general. And let me become an expert at that one thing. Because if I can become an expert at that one thing, all the other smaller things are going to follow. And
Right.
that's how you multitask. And I think we have to be more clear as coaches, but I think the students, the clients, have to be more respectful of their time and what they are physically and mentally and emotionally capable of doing as a human, and put it in perspective so they don't get disappointed, they don't get frustrated. The frustration they go through is more realistic to how they've learned everything else throughout their life that they really value.
Yeah, well said. Great follow-up. Jim, I'm going to come back to you with something a little bit different. This is a scenario I'm going to give you and see what you have to say about this. So you have 3 months to prepare a student to be ready for and be accepted into a college program. So obviously we don't know, I'm not going to give you a specific level, but obviously if they're looking to get into a college program, they've been playing some golf, junior golf, and that we'll throw that in there. What are you going to work on first? Obviously you're going to have a conversation, as we've just pointed out here. You're going to have a conversation, but they're looking at, they're ready to get into college. They want to get on that college golf team, and you've only got 3 months to, get them ready and help to be accepted into that program. What are you going to do, and what are you going to work on?
Well, I'm assuming that this is somebody I don't really know, so I need to get to know them and what has their history been? What have they done up to this point? So let's just put it into perspective that they're seniors in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and they're ready to graduate in this coming May.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to get them prepared, and we've got to get them a place to play. So I need to understand what they've done up to this point. What type of tournament golf have they done? What is their scoring average currently? How has their instruction past been? And are they willing and wanting me to be that person from an instruction standpoint to get them to that next level? And if they align to that and say, yes, I want you as my instructor, and I want you to help me to put together the plan to get there and the information to be recruited, then what we do is we take that assessment of what they said they've done, where their scoring average is, and we determine, okay, based on where you are, and over the next 3 months, you are able, let's say we're in Florida, and the state series is finishing this week. So the state tournaments are done. High school golf is done. Now we're going to go play some tours. And we're going to go play. We're going to set a plan of instruction for this time frame, preparing for events over this time frame, and then here's our schedule of events. And here's the level of events we're going to play. In other words, we're going to find a tour that, based on their scoring average, they can go out and they can compete in that event. And when I say compete, they have a chance to win. College coaches are looking for players who can win. And
Right.
I've seen it straight through my tour, where players have come to my tour and they have won multiple times on tour, and they were selected over another candidate in a school because they won.
Yeah.
So we set out the instruction plan, we set out the tournament plan, and then from there, we put together a package of information of the player, a resume, a 2-minute video of them hitting golf shots down the line and face on, driver, a mid-iron, a wedge, hitting chips, hitting pitches, hitting bunker shots, hitting putts, short ones and long ones. 2 minutes just to show, here's their skill, this is what they look like. That resume has their scoring average. That resume has their grade point average. It was fascinating to me when I got into the process of getting kids to play college golf, how important the GPA is. We sat in front of a coach, a Division I coach, and they asked the player, what's your scoring average? And the young man said, it's 77 in tournaments and I've won 4 times. He says, okay, when you come here, you will be a scoring average of 82. And I thought to myself, that's kind of crazy. And then he asked the player, what is your grade point average? And the young man says, it's a 392 unweighted. And he looked him in the eye and he says, I'll have you as a 74 the first year you're here.
No.
So there was an 8-shot difference based on scoring average. And I asked the coach, I said, help me out here. I need to understand this a little better. And he says, a player who has that kind of a GPA, multiple things occur. 1, they're more coachable.
Yeah.
2, they adjust to life at school faster than those who aren't committed that way. And 3, they will go out and do what is necessary to get better at their craft. Mm-hmm. So that GPA weighed higher for that player because his scoring average was a little high for that program. Mm-hmm. And that coach was ready to make an offer to him. However, he had already made offers to other players.
No.
So that was very important. So that resume, that GPA, that scoring average, your time playing, your record in tournaments, and the key to the record in tournaments. And this comes from a panel that I listened to at the PGA show. There were 6 Division I coaches. Happened to be one from the University of Florida, which has a pretty good program, as you would know, John, and one from the University of Central Florida, and 4 others. They had 3 men, 3 women. And when a question came, where would you coaches have us play our juniors so one of you would recruit them? I thought, what a great question. And the coach from the University of Florida stands up and he says, I got this. And he says, number 1, they got to play on a tour that posts on Junior Golf Scoreboard. He said, number 2, they got to play on a tour they can win. And he sat down and the other 5 followed suit and basically said, ditto. So the plan to get somebody in 3 months to play college golf, a plan on instruction to get their skill as tight as we can get it in that time frame, a plan of where they're going to play, a package of information that they're going to send to the coaches with follow-up. Excuse me. And the other component to it is to go online, find the colleges, the size they want to play at, and find the number 3 player on the team. What's their scoring average? And make sure that their scoring average is equal to number 3 on the team so that they go to a college when they're selected and they're going to play. They're not on the bench. So that would be an overall program to get them to college.
That's great. This would be a great area for the listeners at some point to rewind this, if you will, and listen to that again when it comes time, because it's some great advice, especially for parents out there that have their children that are looking to get into college golf. I mean, there's a lot of information out there, but this is really in a short way you've put together a great plan to help get them in the right direction. So thank you for that, Jim. John, I'm going to come back to you. Tour players, we're going to go a little bit up the food chain, as they will, require obviously a different approach. How does your role change, if at all, when you're working with a tour player? What are the priorities at this point?
First, what Jim said is a show all into itself.
Yeah, I'm going to splice that out, Jim, and I'm going to put that in.
No, it is. It's a show unto itself. 20 some odd years ago at IJGA, we were preaching the same thing. And to segue into the question that you asked me, there was a couple kids 20 years ago that are now playing DP World Tour that I keep up with. The role of the coach evolves. It doesn't really change. It evolves as your player's evolving, as they're climbing the ladder. I think 2 or 3 things really stick out. Details. Details matter when you're swinging at 115 miles an hour or more. One dimple either way. It's a major thing that most golfers have to understand. And because they're doing it, they need the objective eye. So I think coaches at that level aren't any more or less detail-oriented than Jim, myself, or you. They just dwell on those. They harp on those, and they're very astute to the small details that make a difference in their players. And it's not so much details that they're doing wrong. It's the details that they're doing right. And they use video differently. They use it to baseline and record when things are right. So when things are a little off, they've got something to compare to. The other thing about a tour player is not so much they're demanding, so much as they experience things at such a different level, and their level's moving so fast that they're contacting their coach over the smallest of things, not details, just smallest of things, as far as, hey, I saw this on the range with this particular equipment manufacturer. Do you think that's good for me?
Right.
At a junior level, we get that all the time, but it's in a very broad manner. Hey, I play Callaway this. Should I switch from this model to that model? at a tour level, they're saying, hey, with this Callaway, whatever it is, this guy's playing a 6-iron at 28 degrees. I'm playing at 26. I want to fool with it. What should I expect? So it's things like that I would get calls upon. The other thing is they do travel, and years ago it was very difficult to keep up with them. Other than with a phone call, when the digital camera came around, it made it easier. When the camera was in your phone, it made it easier. Now with like Golf Live and other virtual platforms and programs, it is much easier. But being in front of someone and actually being able to point your finger at something or touch the professional golfer in such a way where they can feel minute differences makes a massive difference. So their schedules are such that, and their coaches are all over the place now. They're not just in their hometown, that they've got to schedule their time wisely, even more so than before. And the coach has to have some time on reserve if they've got other obligations. A really cool example of that right now is Jason Bale, who literally has a lot of responsibilities at his club in Jupiter. He's got so many tour professionals working with him right now. He's had to make sure those responsibilities at Jupiter are taken care of by staff and make sure he's there the required amount of time because his guys are pulling him all over the place.
Right.
But he's able to do it. His family's accepted that. His club has accepted that. That's why I think early in the 1990s, you saw such names as Harmon, Ledbetter, Flick, McLean. They had to get away from the clubs because they were spending so much time away. The clubs couldn't justify paying them. I think that's turning a little bit simply because some of the clubs have some fantastic facilities that these players demand. It's not so much the quality of the turf so much as the variety of things they can practice in one location. The ability to practice distance control from various lies, to be able to practice different types of grain of putting, having different surfaces to go off of, different wind conditions, plus the indoor studios. So these tour players, they're not high maintenance. What you have to realize is they're at the upper echelon of this entire sport, so they are higher, period. They're higher than any of us can imagine as far as what they deal with every day. And their coaches are there more as a support mechanism, less as a fixer, more as a pointing out the details that make them great, where they're not there to tear them apart. They're not there to rebuild them.
Yeah, it has, and that's an area that really has changed a lot because you're right. With the coaches now, I think they're busier now than they were 30 years ago because with technology, they're getting everybody's, buzzing in their ear. Whereas before, they knew that they had to travel or what have you, so they couldn't take a workload like they have. And even though technology helps in many ways, it's also a little bit of a difficult challenge as well because people can get you literally at the push of a button. You're on that sort of constant, continual call. I got to get close to wrapping up here, but I want to ask each of you this question. I was going to wait till the end of the year, but I'm going to do this now.
He's cutting us off, Jim.
Oh, yeah.
Must be because we're not together very often.
Right, exactly. No.
I think you and I ought to take a vacation and leave him out of it.
Right, exactly. There you go. No, so Jim, I'm going to come to you, obviously, since John just finished up. But I want to ask you this, and John, I'm going to ask you the same thing. When you finally hang up your teaching hat, what will you miss most about being a golf professional? It's going to happen to all of us. There's going to come a day when we're just, too old, too tired, whatever. Hopefully not for many, many years. What are you going to miss most about being a golf professional?
Well, I think I'll teach much like Harvey Pinnock did until they put me under 6 feet. But I would say the joy of the relationship with the players And when I say the joy, just the interaction on an ongoing basis, the interaction of watching them progress from the level they are when they came to me to as we go through time together, and see those experiences when you have that brand new golfer, the school teacher, she just retired, she's never played before, and she
Mm,
gets the golf ball in the air for the first time and jumps up and down, and you give her a high five, or that junior golfer who uh, wins their first event, uh, and you get to be a part of that experience. I think that's some isolated instances of that relationship. That's what I would miss the most, is
yeah,
the joy of what they're gaining from our relationship.
well said. And John, what about you? I know you probably concur with a lot of what Jim said, but is there anything else that when you hang your hat up that you're going to miss most about what you do?
I 100% agree with Jim that I've already told my facility director of golf that one day he's going to have to call an EMS, and that'll be the day. And they're okay with that. And I'm hoping I'm in triple digits when that happens. Um, I'm going to say the exact same thing that Jim said, but I'm going to use one word: the relationships. The relationships, not only with our clients and students, but the relationships that this industry tends to foster, and the quality of people that I've surrounded myself with as a team, as individual influencers such as yourself, Ted. That the relationships really are the things that get us up every morning, whether our bodies are hurting, we're experiencing physical and mental burnout. Um, we had a rough night the night before, whatever the case may be. I think if you were to ask any golf coach what gets them up in the morning, they would say the relationships.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm going to add one more thing. I think the other thing that I've always looked at, in addition to everything that both of you have said, and I concur again 100% as well, is I think that just the pure satisfaction of doing something to help somebody else be better at whatever it is that they want to do. I think, we are, again, teachers of obviously a specific craft, but really, I think the enjoyment that we get in helping other people aspire to whatever it is, whatever level of golf they want to be, whatever the direction they want to take their game, just the satisfaction of knowing that we're doing something good to help somebody else, I think gives each of us a certain satisfaction. And obviously, one of the things that I've come to enjoy most about doing what we're doing here tonight. Obviously, this is a new format this year, but which I'm excited about because I actually get to see you guys as opposed to just hearing your voices. And I've obviously met both of you personally, but you know, being able to meet people in this industry for the first time in some cases, rekindle friendships maybe you haven't seen for a little while. And that's one of the nice things about going down to the show in January is you get to meet up with people you don't always get to see on a regular basis. So the camaraderie that has and a common goal of just giving our best to our students and doing and watching them grow and always learning ourselves as we go along and becoming better and better. So I just think the relationships are certainly there. And I think also just knowing that we're doing something good to help somebody else is what gives me satisfaction. And I get the great chance of having you guys on, despite all the kidding and the jabs and things like that. It's always a pleasure to have you and many others on the Coach's Corner panel, and of course the special guests as well. But on that note, John, I'm going to come to you real quick. Any thing you want to plug, and let the folks know the best way they can reach out in the gym. I'll follow up with you.
Sure. I got a follow up to that question. I really thought you were going to ask for my wish list for the holidays. I'm really disappointed. Ted, as always,
a dream list.
I give that to my spouse. I give you a wish list.
All right.
Um,
Go for it.
the
I know it's
Ted,
more
thanks.
shows with me. That's
Right.
on your wish list.
Yeah, why not?
Well,
But Jim and Ted, I have a lot of fun with both of you guys as individuals, and we should do more of this more often with this show. I appreciate the opportunity over the years to give back, as you said, to help people, and I do like this format better because it makes me keep my eyes open for 45 minutes versus nodding off.
yeah, I don't hear snoring anymore.
So I do have some. I finally got these in my hand. My new book, Instant Golf Improvement. I said it earlier in the show. There is a chasm out there, and this book is directed to the person who has limited time or just refuses to spend the time for whatever reason. There's 6 nuggets in here, and if you take them to heart, can you see some instantaneous gratification in your golf game? Absolutely. The sequel, the second, is already in the publisher's hands. Looking for that to come out sometime early spring, late winter, early spring. This will be a trilogy. And look for the website, instantgolfimprovement.com. You can purchase the book there. When you purchase it there, I sign it for you versus buying it on Amazon. It's not about the money. It is about giving back and hitting that niche. People want to contact me, John at John Hughes Golf is my email. Go to johnhughesgolf.com. Telephone numbers there. All the programs are there. I do hope that you come see me in Orlando now through May. And in December, I'll have some more to announce and plug.
Perfect. Always glad to have you on, John. Jim, what about yourself? Best way they can reach you? And if there's anything special you'd like to plug, now's the time.
Well, I want to just say thank you for this involvement with you, John, and you, Ted. It's a joy, and I wish you best of luck with your book. And I'm looking for my signed copy of that.
Yeah, me too.
I need your address. You moved.
I'll send it to you. But easiest way to reach me is my cell phone. That's 407-460-9420. Teach here in the Dallas, Frisco area. And I also travel to Orlando once a month, and I'll be teaching down there as well when I do that. So love to be able to talk with some of you that have more interest in this game and that I might be able to help you. So thanks for a great night.
Perfect. And again, you're going to see these two guys one more time before the season ends on another Coach's Corner, and then we'll be taking an extended break, and I'll in the next show I'll be giving all of the specific details of our last shows and so forth. But always excited to have both of you on here, and thank you again for a great season. Always giving your best on the show. I just enjoy having you guys here and having that conversation. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when I come back, my very special guest of the evening, Dave Shultz, CEO of NextLinks, is going to be joining me.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to reach your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm really excited to have tonight's featured guest, and I'll introduce him here in just a minute. But just, again, for those of you that are tuning in a little bit later on in the broadcast, don't forget that you can go to our iGolf Sports YouTube channel, and you can subscribe there to see all of the previously aired shows, including tonight's will be there shortly. You can also catch it on Spotify.com, or you can listen to the audio version on Spreaker.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check them out there as well. But thanks for joining tonight. Just finished a great Coach's Corner. And again, a special thanks to John Hughes and Jim Endicott for joining me on the panel discussion tonight here on Golf Talk Live. But let me introduce tonight's guest. We were actually on the phone earlier today, and I was trying to figure out how many times he's been on the show. I think he's been on more than any other guest. I'm going to introduce him, and then we'll hash that out when he comes on. But my very special guest tonight is Dave Shultz. He is a veteran technologist whose experience includes enlisting in the U.S. Navy, where he worked as an electronics technician for avionics systems on the A-6E and F-18A jets. Following the Navy, he attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and studied electronic engineering, where he graduated summa cum laude. He held key roles in manufacturing operations and technology development globally within aviation's oil and gas and energy sectors, beginning at Bentley Nevada Corporation, a world-class company specializing in rotating machinery dynamics. So he's got a great background. But at some point, as an avid golfer and enthusiast, he decided to dedicate his life to and career and family. Like most busy golfers, his handicap suffered without enough time to play golf, and seeing the new flourishing driving ranges options like Top Golf that were fun but uninspiring. This was his aha moment, and he came up with the idea of integrating virtual play in a screen with real play and on real greens. In 2005, he combined his engineering experience with his passion for golf to launch NextLinks. So we're going to talk about that and more, and some other interesting topics as well. So please welcome back to the show my very special guest, CEO of NextLinks, Dave Shultz. Dave, how you doing?
Good, Ted. Thanks for having me back on.
So always a pleasure. I think, now don't quote me on this, I think the last time you were on, which we were saying was right sort of smack dab in the middle of COVID, so it was around 2020, I believe. Possibly.
I think it was before the shutdown, but early in 2020. I think it was like between January and March of 2020, before the real world turned off.
Right.
But just before,
it was close.
Not long before.
I think you're right, but I think that was either number 6 or number 7. I'm going to go back because it's got my curiosity. And I think it's number 6 or 7, if that would make this number 8.
I listened to it like 2 or 3 when we were supposed to do this like a month or 2 ago.
Right.
I went back and I listened to that episode, and I went, "Oh, holy crud, that was a good episode."
Right. A lot of stuff. Yeah, you always, that was always the fun thing, is every time you came on, you always covered a lot of stuff, and you just an interesting individual, and we've become friends through the show over the years. And you've shared a lot of interesting things, but I want to go back just a little bit and just give us sort of an update, if you will, with NextLinks. So what's been happening in NextLinks world since we last spoke, since that last show? So it's been a few years. So what's been going on?
Yeah, I mean, well, with that intro, you set it up really well. So by the way, it's 2015. I know you said 2005, but
sorry, yeah, 2015. Yeah,
it's all good. So 2015, it was St. Patrick's Day. I was golfing with my son in Carmel, and just saw Top Golf beginning to scale. Right, that's if you go back and look at their growth.
Yeah,
and I just was like, you know what is going on with golf? It's so small, right? It's so small.
Yeah,
and so that grabbed me because I had a career in product development. So I understood how to take ideas and put them into play in the corporate world, where things take years, not, weeks or months. And so I put a lot of time thinking about how to start this company and how to make sure that I could do what I wanted to do for the marketplace, and I could also make sure I was going to get paid, right? So this is kind of pivotal now, like 10 years later, but at the time I had really no clue about all this stuff. But the way I got into this game is I approached an investor who is really very, very high net worth, right? So connected to the people that are like Phil Knights of the world, right? So at that level. And so after I did all my homework on what was going on in the golf industry, and I saw the billionaires involved and all that stuff, I'm like, oh, this is my game. I'm in, right? And so I really put it out there. And so I got a big, everybody knew about me. And it started to create a lot of people trying to figure out what my game was.
Right.
And I basically said, look, I already applied for my patent. I said, I want to play this thing so big, I got to be comfortable just sharing everything, all my knowledge all the time, right? It's the only way this is going to work.
Mm.
I said, I've already applied for my patent, and I trust that if I continue to earn the right to be here, right, do the work, that, I'll get myself paid. And what I realized was the people I was talking to thought that was a just absurd, crazy, thing. Like,
Right.
because they only see patents in one way. They saw it as an instrument to sue some other company. And if that other company is a monopoly and they have unlimited lawyers, right, the patent is sort of a useless object in this golf space, right?
Right.
So the people I was talking to already knew that. So what I agreed to was to let a real estate company fire up the exact same time I started my company, right, the Dave Shultz company. And really the only thing in that company was my patent and the work, that I was earning. And so this other real estate game needed my support, and so they kept feeding me, right? So I got 5 years of knowledge and about $6 million and got to know every leader in the industry all over Europe and all over the world and understood the game. And right after our last call, the game began to just sort of take all that work and just run with it and leave me behind and skip out on paying me for the patent.
Right.
It's as easy as that. It's kind of the way I set it up in a way, if you look at it backwards, right? It's just, I didn't know how big the game was going to get. I didn't know how big that real estate game was getting, right? And I didn't know the people involved, right? So I know all that now, right? My dad clued me in on his deathbed in August of 23, right? So right before the SSG investment in December of 23. And so it was a really pivotal time. And he was dying, and it turns out that my family, right, my sister is involved in this other real estate game in ways that are sort of nefarious. And I didn't know that, but my dad knew that. And so he was dying, and he sort of revealed it to me on, his last 2 or 3 days of being alive. And that's when the game really began for me. I was like, oh my gosh. But what happened during that week is I realized that I had a team of supporters that were not letting themselves be known, but they decided it was time to let me know that they were there, like that they were paying attention to the work that I was doing on LinkedIn. So part of my strategy was every single day to sort of leave breadcrumbs on LinkedIn. So 1, 2 anecdotes. Anybody that's going to engage me, right, I'm going to make sure their face is on my LinkedIn, right? All I'm doing is collecting receipts along the way, right? So nobody gave me credit for being sort of that astute, that all that was going on. And so I took advantage of that. So January of 22 is when it got serious. $100 million of venture capital joined the game under the Tiger Woods brand, right?
Yep.
That's when it got deadly, because the game that I was playing before that was absorbed into that game. And that game had already assigned me, Dave Shultz, a position, right? This is what we're going to do with him, right? He's going to be the crazy founder, right? And we're just going to put him off to pasture, and then we're going to give credit to other people that didn't earn it and don't deserve it.
Right.
I mean, that's just the game.
That's the way it works, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm aware of it, and I'm just sort of watching it play out. And so April of 22, so just 3 months later, after the 100 mil goes in, all of a sudden the whole like an APB of what can we learn about NextLinks and all of its background. So this is, and that was since 2015. And so everybody around me started reaching out to me. Hey, did this group reach out to you and offer you like $500 to, give some scoop on NextLinks? And yeah. And I said, yeah, they reached out to me too. And so I sort of told everybody, I said, look, I'm just going to do it for free, right? I knew by April, I already knew I was at the Genesis in February. So that's when the Live Golf was really getting fearful, right? And so I got invited to a party that was like Jim Nantz was one of the sort of hosts of the party. And I knew I was being conned. I'm like, oh shit. And I met with Tiger's team the next day, and I said, you guys, I know what you're getting pulled into. I said, I've been working on this for 7 years. I said, I just implore you not to do this, but if you do, just know that you're going to regret it.
Right.
There's no other way to say it. And I'd already been working with people really close to Jordan Spieth for that whole 7 years, right?
Right.
And so I told Tiger's team, I said, I want to look out for these guys. I said, they've shown me nothing to make me believe they're doing anything but acting in good faith, right?
Right.
And so I don't know what the truth is, but that's what my, belief was. And so I shared that with Tiger's team at the time. And so I think that's what started the hot war of who's going to control golf in the future. And so, all of that January, that 100 mil was designed to create TGL, which became the competitor to Live Golf. So the thing most people don't know that I know, and I've seen the receipts, right? Is that that Fox Dominion lawsuit that Fox settled really fast?
Mm-hmm.
It's because inside there, the reveal that Donald Trump was planning on using sort of my work and vision to outsmart the Live Golf guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, that makes me a pretty big discussion topic in smaller circles.
Right.
Right. So when the December 7th, I'm just going to kind of bounce around a little bit. When the December 7th investment happened with SSG, everybody was aware that I had survived this 7 years, and that in a way I was actually playing a bigger game than everybody else. And, I could feel the energy of my team beginning to really emerge. And what they knew that nobody else knew is that I owned my patent free and clear, and that I had never, ever encumbered it with anything. It's like I got it in the mail and I just put it in a shoebox and I tucked it away, and it's still in that state.
Right.
And so with the emergence of cryptocurrency, right, and using intangible assets like a patent as the basis, the gold for a cryptocurrency, it turns out that an unencumbered patent like mine and 7, 8, 10 years of development work that basically says, wow, that guy figured it all out 10 years ago and he did all the right stuff and he documented it. Using that as as an asset that gets tokenized so that it can be shared without corruptness, it's a unicorn. And so I learned that when Dan Meacham was involved, right? So remember, I had Brandel Chambly on my board.
Right. I remember that.
I mean, this thing that was January of 22. So in January of 22 is when Brandel stopped talking to me.
Right.
And he started pissing all over the Saudis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember.
And so I was just watching it happen. Everybody sort of expected that I would do something, right? Because it was such a blatant just rejection of me, right? Word went out that if you talk to me, you're going to get listed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so don't do it. Just stay away from that guy. And then as the Saudis protected me more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you just don't worry about him. He's harmless, but do acknowledge him, right? And so then, the Don Rays of the world started, oh, yeah, I know Dave, right? And then, as they started to realize that I was actually playing them, now they're scared and they're all in hiding, at this moment.
Let me interject just for a second, because I want, just for those that maybe are not that familiar with Live Golf, they came on the scene a few years ago, as you know and I know. Do you think overall, and again, just your thoughts on this, do you think it's been good or bad for the game? And how do you see it affecting the game? How, in your, we all have our own individual thoughts. Some people are for it, some people are against it. And I have some other things I want to ask you about in that relation to that. But generally, based on the format and forgetting about behind the scenes for just a second.
Mm-hmm. The competition.
Right. Was it good overall for something like that to come into the arena, do you think? Or do you think it's just a shell, an empty shell that looks good on the surface, or potentially good on the surface? No. That's what I'm getting at. So you go ahead.
No, it was so necessary, right? So that's what started my split with the status quo, because I saw it as so necessary I'm like, the players have been encumbered by these horrible rules, right?
Yeah.
And by having Live Golf as another option at that level of competitiveness, it created a fair market. It created a free market. It was going to allow the game to grow. And the status quo didn't want that to happen, so they started putting out a lot of bad media that makes everybody think that it's a sham or that it's a carnival. It's none of the above. So remember, I was at Portland, right? So I have very firsthand experience. So I was at the whole tournament in Portland. The first one, June of 22. That's when I gave the Saudis control of. I haven't collected a paycheck since that day, right? I said, you guys take it because it's useless to me, and just make sure you mess those guys up with it, right?
Right. Well, and that's what I wanted to follow up with. So, as a result of that, there's been a lot of inner fighting, amongst the golf purists and those wanting the game to go in a different direction, as you're proposing here.
Yeah.
So you think, based on what and your understanding that it's actually been a good thing, but the way it's been presented by, again, the status quo, it's been presented in an unflattering light. Is that pretty much
correct?
Okay.
I mean, you can kind of go point by point, right? Which is kind of like your audience probably cares about this stuff, right? So
Sure.
the team thing, right? So remember, at Portland was the height of when Jay Monahan was smearing them about 9/11, right?
Right.
I mean, the picketers outside, it was a mess. The vendors were getting threatened by the status quo for participating. And they put on a tournament, and the players were genuinely enjoying it so much. And the team aspect only added, the scoreboard was confusing, right?
Sure.
So I was like, holy crap, there's so much going on that scoreboard. But that was the beginning for them, right? They were committed to getting it better. And so the people that started watching and participating in the beginning, they understand how to separate the team element from the individual element. So it's still a complete full tournament, and now it's a full 72-hole tournament. It's still based entirely upon individual merit. The only argument people make is that somehow the teams are going to influence the individual from wanting to do his best, right? Throw this putt so that guy can win, right? Because it's better for the team. Well, that's just bullshit, right? That's not how how these guys think.
Betting that they've put into it now is doing the same thing anyway. So, I mean, one half was. So let me follow up then with, where Jay is concerned. Then I want you to continue on. So Jay, of course, Monahan, for those that are not up with golf, is the current commissioner of the PGA. He's going to be succeeded next year by Brian Rolap at the end of 2026. Is your opinion, is this a good change given the controversy that's been following Jay? A well-needed change, or as I said a moment ago, do you think it's just going to be, the pressures that will mount will put him in a position where it's going to be status quo? Do you think he's generally going to come in and make some changes that are going to benefit the PGA, or do you think that he's going to just sort of get in line when the powers that be just sort of put that pressure on him? What are your thoughts?
So the powers that be, he didn't start his job. So you said August of 26. That's sort of the
the end of 26.
No, I know, but
right.
What I'm saying is August of 25, three months ago, is when all the power shifted to PGA Tour Enterprises.
Right.
So PGA Tour Enterprises is entirely separate. Yep. It was designed to be a safe haven for the professional players to jump into.
Yeah.
As all these legacy power brokers get disrupted and pushed out of the system because they're not allowing the game to grow. The reason the game was so small is because you got a small number of people that control everything and they don't want it to grow, right? So I turned that into a rallying cry over 10 years, and now a giant army has kicked those guys out, and they created PGA. I'm the one that had the idea for PGA Tour Enterprises as a way of figuring this out, right? So a bunch of us were cone of silence, right? But we were jabbering about how to do this. Like, we were talking about completely disrupting the Masters, right? So even though I wasn't getting paid since June of 22, I started working for the Saudis, right? So I left Portland, and I'm like, that's my boss, right? So Magic's the one that told me to let go of the project in La Quinta that Champley and Meacham were involved in,
Right.
and to pivot and to become sort of an attack dog on ethics and morality and the truth. And Jay Monahan specifically, he basically told me Jay was my enemy, right? So 2 months later, Jay took top 20 players at that Ricky Tiger meeting and gave them equity in the guys that are competing against me, that real estate company. So Magid was just forecasting to me, dude, the guy that you really should be pissed at is Jay. He's the one that's you the hardest, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the truth.
Right.
So I used my platform, LinkedIn, to sort of tell the truth, right? And the truth hurts, right? None of these guys want the truth shined on them. Howard Milstein, right? You don't say his name out loud, right? You'll be lucky to have a show next week, 2 years ago.
Right.
If I said that to you and you put that out there without checking with somebody,
Right.
it's just the way it is, right? It's the old system. So the new system shifted. So Brian Rolap already has the power. So, but he got the power on August 1st. So like 3-4 months ago, he's already made a bunch of changes at the top, and he's trying to establish a new culture of growing the game without politics and without hidden agendas. And from what I can see, he's already hitting it out of the park, right? He's already got a relationship with Scott O'Neill, who leads the Live Golf side. The future for the PGA Tour is going to be inclusive of teams, because TGL, they're going to have to walk away from their equity in Tomorrow Sports and TGL, because that's the elephant in the room. Those are the guys that decided to take my stuff without paying me.
Right.
And so something has to be done to sort of fix that. And that's what the Saudis have been working on for the last 3 years, is how do we do everything they're doing and make sure we're doing it better for the marketplace than they're doing it, so that when the time comes, right, we'll be able to just slide in and everything will keep growing. And so Brian Rolap is part of that growth. And he's like, I'm excited that he's here. I think the whole business is going to be run with a new sort of matching set of ethics that I thought it already had. So that was my naivete at the beginning 10 years ago, is I didn't realize how bad the bad guys were, right? They were holding this thing down.
Yeah.
I didn't care either.
Right.
That's the point.
And so what do you see, give us just, again, from your perspective, what are some of the things that people are going to tangibly see in the years to come with the PGA now, with these changes that have gone on? I mean, obviously, as you said, PGA Tour Enterprises come up in August, and now they have full control of the tour. What are going to be some of the changes, and how is, or what is going to be the relationship with Live Golf? How does that factor into as well? So maybe you can give us a little bit of insight into that.
So I think that's why we have the TGL teams, right? So those TGL teams have the exact identical same structure as the Live Golf teams, right? So do you want those to become PGA Tour teams since they're already established, right? Instead of TGL teams? I think the answer is yes. So you got Boston Common, which is associated with it was Terrell Hatton, he left, and Rory. So Rory's got Boston, and then you got LA Golf Club, right? And it's got a bunch of cool guys, Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood, right? And so you got one in Atlanta, you got one in New York. It's a natural thing, knowing that, okay, we got to sort of pivot away from this indoor golf league and let others sort of build that out the way it was supposed to go. And we got to invest in the PGA Tour and making it relevant. So I think the end game is you have sort of an AFC, NFC, sport. And so you've got PGA Tour teams, franchises, and you've got Live Golf teams, franchises. And there may be a promotion demotion thing eventually, like, soccer, where Live Golf is the Premier League, and the PGA Tour is the one that's the closest thing to it that thinks it's the Premier League, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that's sort of the hierarchy now. People would say, wait a minute, the PGA Tour is the Premier League, right? But the problem is that their leaders did a bad job the last few years, and
Yeah.
the Saudi leaders did a good job the last few years.
Well, and they're
And
putting
so now the power shifts.
Yeah, they're
putting the money behind it.
Oh, yeah, money behind it. Is this something that you foresee moving into the women's side of things as well at some point? I mean, is there already, as far as you know, has there been discussions about that where you're going to start seeing this happening with the LPGA and so forth as well? And if so, what are we looking at? Maybe within the next 5 years, if not sooner?
I think sooner, because I think that the leaders that are controlling the game today, I think they honestly, authentically understand the value of the women's game. So it's not, the women's game isn't not popular because it's not a good sport. It's not popular because people have decided that it's going to be second fiddle, right? And so, yeah, I think the money's already there because something happened with the LPGA maybe 2 years ago now. They were going to sell to somebody, and then the deal kind of got shut, and then they went a different direction. And so, now Craig Kessler is their commissioner, who came from Topgolf of all places, right, through the PGA of America.
Right.
And I think that it's good things are going to happen for the LPGA because I think there's a genuine commitment to make sure that the sport gets the light shined on it that it deserves. So Alexis Ohanian, right? He's married to Serena. He owns the LA Golf Club. He also owns a bunch of female sports teams.
Right.
And then he's the one I see out there really waving the banner like day in and day out, female sports. And then you've got people at the top level that know how to spend the money to build these global leagues, seeing, how to put all that energy to work. And so, a lot of the stuff going on business-wise is at this level with guys like Sam Altman and Brian Esposito and, Alexis Ohanian, right? And a guy named Matthew Scott who comes from Rory's hometown. So, there's a bunch of technology guys that are part of my tribe now that, are sort of have been paying attention to how everybody else is doing it and doing it a little bit better. And so there's a lot to come on that. There's a lot of fun stuff because of the value of the patent and all that. So yeah, I think the women's sport, dude, is I want to see one live team or one PGA tour team. I want to see a female, like, you don't have to have a female team, I don't think, with golf. I think you could have the Boston Commons golf team have both male and female members, right? So remember, if you have a franchise, it could have 50 players inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you're trying to do is field tournaments with the best. So you have people that put tournaments together, and then you have people that own player franchises that feed the tournaments with players that have their branding on them and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it really creates a really palatable model, and the hard work is already behind us, Ted. There's a lot of business development that's been going on since 2020.
Right.
That's good, right?
Right.
And it's gonna go into that lane.
Do you think that this is something that the market itself, and I'm not talking about the golf market, but from a fan's perspective, that's really driving a lot of this change too? Because, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I always used to enjoy watching golf tournaments. Now I don't get to see as many, as I used to, but you think that the market has changed. I mean, we see it in the instructional side. It's changed so much how we handle instruction now, how things are happening. Do you think that this younger generation that's been coming up is saying, look, we like these other sports over here, there's just a more of an edge to it and that, and they're pivoting away from the traditional? And that's not to say it's going to go away completely, but the model is changing so much that it's bringing in a new audience that it never had before. I mean, we saw that with COVID. There were people that never played this game before, just out of pure force. They had to get out there and, if they want to do something, or either sit at home and watch Netflix all the time, they had to do something. So they started going out and, hey, golf is something I can do during this pandemic. So do you see that as a pivotal? Topgolf obviously did some things as well that changed the industry, from what it used to be. I mean, obviously they've had some issues too, but do you see that the the next generations coming up of golfers have changed or helped to propel what's happening now?
Yeah, I mean, so you really have to realize that the population of golf fans is minuscule, right? Today,
Yeah.
compared to the population of golf fans that are part of the model, right?
Right.
So I think by definition, you don't care so much about what the golf fans of today think about growth because they're already happy, right?
Sure.
So what you're thinking about is how do we introduce people that don't get near golf because
Right.
it's boring and unapproachable, and that's what the golf court is all about. So the golf court is TGL on a size of a tennis court or on the size of a pickleball court.
Mm-hmm.
And that's now already built into plans that are under development. That's what I realized with that meeting I had in April of 22. That's why I shared that with you.
Right.
Is the people I interviewed with, they gave me 10 questions like 30 minutes before my interview. It was like, I was like, oh shit, these guys are serious, right? I mean, remember, I just like agreed to this thing. So they were serious and they were good, and they were talking about multi-sport facilities, right? Sports cities. And so I'm heavily involved in sports cities right now and developing that kind of stuff. And what they were missing was confidence in how to add golf into their already developed multi-sport facilities. Because golf had been suppressed for so many years, it was such a mess and nobody trusts each other. How are you ever going to create unity and growth under these conditions? And the answer is you can't, right? And that was sort of the gist of the interview in April of 22. And I handed them names, receipts, right? I said, you guys want to beat these guys? Here's how you do it, right? I said, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. Here's my history with them. He's bad, he's bad. Like, and remember, I don't mean bad, Ted, because
I know what you mean.
good people do bad things, right? We're competing in a business sense. And it's like Survivor. We're on different tribes, right? We lie to each other and we dance with each other. But ultimately, we want our own tribe to win, right?
Right.
And I threw my name in the hat with this Saudi team. So Yasser, His Excellency, right, His Super Excellency, he is the one who reached out to me in 2020. So not long after our last interview, I got a call. So we were doing the Revelry in Mesa, and we essentially built a golf court, right, 80 feet by 20 feet. And we activated the NextLinks technology on top of it. And we had people coming from clubs to spend their nights there and play our NextLinks game on these fixed area putting greens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, everybody could see the value. And so those guys were associated with Smith & Wesson. And so what they did is they're the ones that sort of hooked in my story into the status quo. They were selling it and I was selling it. And so I reached out to the Saudis with my pitch deck and said, hey, I need help. And I shared my cap table with them. Right. I did the same thing with Meta World Peace at the same time. And so I got a reply. And so I knew I had their attention. And I was like, oh, that was nice. Right. Because I knew I was competing with these other guys who were trying to sell my plan out from under me. I mean, it was kind of a well-known thing going on. It was right like 6 months after we spoke. And so ultimately they chapter 7'd it. So that was the same time Chambly. I took Chambly out there and I gave him a tour. Right, Dan Meacham was there. This guy named Pete Walsh, who was the CIO for the Cowboys. They were all sent to me from this real estate company to learn from me and then push me aside. Right. And I sort of knew that from day one. And so I was sort of, that was the dance we were doing. And now, I think Yasser just told Trump that they're going to put me as the manager of their money into the United States, at least for the golf spend, maybe for more than that. So you read my history with the oil and gas and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I was talking to Majid in June of 22, I'm like, dude, Yasser is the chairman of Saudi Aramco. Like, that was one of our major accounts, right? I said, everybody knows me, like in that circle, in that Bentley, Nevada world. And so I sent them to meet people, leaving that. And so they're going to have to tell the story from there. But remember, I gave them everything and I gave them all the answers. They had to have been behind that call in April. So, April, I did the call. One week before the Portland tournament, I didn't know Magic had my number, right? He never talked to me in 7 years. I'm always sending him stuff, but he never replies. I don't even know if he got it, right? So 1 week before Portland, I get a text from Magic. Hey, this is Magic. I think you should come to Portland. And I was like, okay, where do I stay? No answer. How do I get there? No answer. And I'm like, all right. So I bought a ticket and I flew up there near the site. And then I texted him when I got there. I said, I'm here. And then he hooked me up with VIP passes. And that's when I met Bryson DeChambeau's parents there before his dad passed away. And we spent like an hour talking to each other. I mean, it was a really special event. And I could tell, Greg Norman was there.
Right.
And he's a big part of my story, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's all. It was a big event. And I knew the way Magic set it up that he was in trouble. So I wasn't pitching to him. When he invited me, he said, I might need your help. And what he realized was that Trump had set this trap using my work and vision to sort of kill his baby, Live Golf. And he was trying to figure out what to do about it. Mm-hmm. And so I told him, look, I wouldn't even worry about those guys. I would just start over. I said, here's my patent. Here's my recipe. I said, I did all that in 6 years, but you could get up to where they're at right now in 6 months if you start. I said, all they want to do is fight with you. I said, put money and do the work. I said, then we'll get places, right? So I think they have this golf court, right? Because that's where it was. We were at the point where we had shaped this pickleball-sized golf court. Mm. And that's when everybody went, oh, shit, this thing has global potential. It has massive scalability. That's when you started seeing money going into paddle and pickleball almost in preparation for, the golf thing. You see a lot of money going into simulators, but the simulator market, the product itself isn't attractive enough to a non-golfer to ever be approachable that way. You have to have options that are easier than what you get with a simulator.
Right.
And sort of the golf court provides that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where we're at right now is the Saudis have been developing something for 3 years, and they're about to reveal what they've been developing. And I think they're planning on putting the brand NextLinks on top of it. So remember, I gave them the brand in June of 22. And so I think they're planning on flagshipping something with the brand NextLinks, which is sort of the culmination of all that work. So they asked me, so imagine he said, what do you want, Dave? And I said, well, I want to get compensated for this patent. I said, that's the game I started, right? That's the only thing I said I wanted was to get paid what I earned. And it's all protected by this, which also happens to be the recipe to compete with those guys, right? Mm-hmm. So it was just like serendipity. And it was just like, I knew right then. And so they were waiting on a report. There's this project Numeraba, right? And then we haven't even touched on Francois Houghton and Game Golf and Joe McKnight, who's this technology mastermind that, Francois managed to keep inside of the golf industry. And now they have a company that is going to basically take away the competitive advantage of companies like Arcos, right? That sort of use data in a proprietary way. So they're tapping into this whole NVIDIA sort of infrastructure rollout. I mean, there's a lot going on, Ted, behind the scenes. I mean, this is a big game now. It's a really big game.
We might have to have a second section to this podcast, a little bit in the new year to as things unfold and progress, and that there's so much. I mean, so much has happened since as you said, since we spoke last time, and obviously there was a lot of pivoting back and forth, and I hate to use the backstabbing, but I guess is the best way to do it. And I think ultimately it's going to be better for the game in the long run, but you have to sometimes shovel a little bit of manure, in order to get to the good stuff underneath.
It's just unfortunate, because the sort of the nature of this thing. So I honestly committed my life to this, right? So
Sure.
I never quite closed on that, but my buddy from Voight Commercial, he didn't want to let me have this intro with this other guy, right? I had to fight him for that. And then somebody got to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you really want to meet this guy? You know, I'll introduce you. And I promised him a $3 million commission. And that was the beginning, right? He and I are the OGs. He's the one that started the real estate company, right? And he's one of my best friends for life, right? And then he enlisted my family. And then I think Eric Trump got involved, right? Because Eric Trump was on my tail from day one. So between 2015 and 2017, I was doing business development with close associates of Eric Trump and with people very ingrained in the Russian marketplace, right? So that's where Peter McAvoy sort of helped me. And remember, I worked for General Electric, which was a global company. We did business inside Russia. There was no Russiagate, right? This was pre all this stuff. And I just looked at who's doing business with who, and if my company, General Electric, is doing business in that country, then it must be okay, right? So I was sharing drawings, I was sharing ideas, right? And so knowing that those guys are all involved in this real estate company now helps me understand why the game got so big, right? And why the spotlight got on me all of a sudden.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because I'm not supposed to be here, right? The only reason I'm here is because I have a team that protected me.
Right.
And they're still here, and they're pretty powerful now. So, but it's just, we all have a mantra, Ted. So the reason this works and the reason it will continue to work is the core people that are involved in this effort, they want to grow the game, right? So the reason this company that Francois and Joe put together is so game changing is because it never would have been allowed 2 years ago, right?
Right.
But now it's funded, and now there's massive people involved in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this thing is just growing and growing and growing. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. Let me tell you. I mean,
dude, so remember, I've lived it for 10.5 years now. So every single day, and I knew that I might lose my life, right? Because I knew this was a big game. Yeah. That's why I brought that up, because those were scary times, right? Because my wife would divorce me if I did business in that world, and that's part of why everybody has assumed that I was going to have a tragic ending, is because I'm so vocally, an opponent of him, right? Mm-hmm. Not politically, because his son's trying to kill me in business, right? Before he was president. It has nothing to do with politics for me. It's just business, right?
Right, exactly. I hear you.
But everybody paints it with that lens, and I'm like, you guys don't understand. I'm competing with these guys, right? Mm-hmm. So that's been the diciest dynamic, is to acknowledge that Trump is involved in stealing my work and vision, right? Which is clearly documented now with the Fox thing, and it's been acknowledged several ways to me. So I now have put it as, fact, right? So with all that sort of coming together, people are beginning to understand that I have a game and why a team would assemble behind me. But when I was saying that stuff 2 or 3 years ago out loud, that's what was being used against me, right? That was being redirected to sort of make me sound crazy, right? So, because nobody knew that, even me,
right?
Because my dad hadn't told me yet, right? So I was blissfully unaware that I was being shadowed at that level.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, in 2026 and beyond. And I know we're going to be keeping a much, different eye on things, if you will, than what it has in the past. And, there's been, obviously, as I pointed out earlier, there was a lot of pushback originally with Live Golf and that. And, but I think you're right. I think the game has to grow. You can't just keep going down the same path all the time. You've got new people coming in. It's just like every other business. You have to be able to be willing to pivot and be able to move in a different direction as the the people that are paying the bills decide that, hey, we want something different. We want something new. This is boring to us, whatever. And, instruction has had to do that as well. We've had to take our lead, and it's still a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, you have to make some changes. But I know there's so many other things. I've got to unfortunately cut us off, but we'll get on another show, next year, and we'll continue the journey as more things unfold. But I'll give you just a moment or two of any final thoughts that you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, like you, right, Ted Odorico, right? So I found you, I don't know if our first interview was in 2015 or 2016, but it was right in that time frame.
Yeah, it was fairly early. Yeah, it was fairly early.
And tonight we talked like broad range, but for most of those shows, we were talking about the product development process that I was going through, that I thought in good faith was going to be adopted and I would get paid. Remember, I was unaware during all that time. And so I just am grateful that I picked, like somehow you and I came together. And I told you when we were talking earlier that what attracted me to you was you had this live radio only broadcast,
right,
that was just live and it was unedited. So it's almost like a live stream that you captured at moments of time that looking backwards are really pretty pivotal. So the moment we hung up last time, like literally 30 seconds after we hung up, my phone rang. And it was a guy named Gino Pini who runs a company called China California Golf.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just listened to us talk and he wanted to meet me. And that was right before I got in front of sort of the Schwab people and
right.
So that was at a really cool time. Right. And it was the minute we hung up, it was probably I was at my lowest low, like internally, during our last call. So that's when I went back and listened to it. And I was like, oh, you don't realize when you're under pressure, if you're just trying to help, if you're just trying to serve people don't notice if you're sweating or if you're stressed, right?
Right.
That's something you create inside yourself. And so I've learned that when I had that occasionally, and then I realized that people didn't pick up on it, then I stopped fearing it, and then ultimately it went away for the most part, right? And so that's kind of a fun place for me to have gotten to, as a human being over these years. So this journey has been really, really good to me. And having your record, remember the status quo decided to erase everything from 2015 to 2020. They were using AI to do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a full plan to just make it disappear. And I'm like, screw that. Like, that's my life, right? You can't do that to me.
Right.
So I've been fighting against that for a long time, and it feels good to be through the touchdown and knowing that I helped the Saudis get this control that they wanted so desperately, and that they have been in good faith for a long time, and they were just dealing with stuff that nobody should have to deal with, and I helped them win over the last 3 years, and now they're paying me back by helping me get a job, which is all I ever really wanted. Nobody would give me one, right?
Right.
Nobody would give me the time of day after 3 years ago.
Right. And, it again, as we've talked about many times, things come full circle, things happen for a reason. And it's always been interesting to listen to your journey and be a part of it and that. And I'm excited for you, obviously, because, this is something, as you've indicated several times, not just tonight, but in past episodes, where you've put a lot of heart and soul into this NextLinks project. Yep. And it's had its ups and downs and its pitfalls and whatever along the way, but it was something that you were very passionate about, and your real focus was always, that came across to me, was you really wanted to truly grow the game. A lot of people talk about growing the game, mm-hmm. but you really wanted to do something to grow the game, and I think we're going to see the fruits of all that yeah. hard work and that, and hopefully you will see the fruits directly, because you're the one that's behind it, but yeah. hopefully we will see that as time goes on. But
so I just want to, like, we'll cut off now, but what you just said reminded me of Peter McAvoy again, right? I said his name earlier, but I can't state how important he was to my journey, because he was the British amateur at the same time Fred Ridley was the U.S. amateur in the late 70s, right? Mm-hmm. So he was my first guy. So he spent hours with me driving all around London. He's the one that got my idea pitched in the Houses of Parliament, right? We lost him this year. He died of cancer, I think. So he told me, he said, I asked him, I said, Peter, this doesn't seem that hard. I said, why isn't it working? He said, because the people in charge don't want it to grow. He said, you want to fix this, get to know them, protect yourself with your intellectual property, and get yourself into the market first. And that's exactly what I did in Mesa, Arizona. And that's why they put locks on the door and tried to beat me with more nefarious ways. And I've just been fighting against that. And, you know, karma sucks.
That's right. I hear you. I hear you. Exactly. All right. Well, listen, Dave, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I just got to wrap up here real quick. I want to take this opportunity again to thank the guys earlier on the Coach's Corner panel, John Hughes and Jim Endicott. Thanks, guys, for always bringing your best. And, of course, very special thank you to my good friend and special guest, Dave Shultz, the CEO of NextLinks. And we're going to see what's coming up next in the years to come. But always a pleasure. Don't forget, if you go to iGolf Sports YouTube channel, the show will be up there this weekend in its entirety, so you want to check it out. And you can also check out all of the previous shows as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also catch us on Spotify and also Spreaker.com if you're interested in listening to the audio version. But on that note, thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. God bless, and I'll see you next time right here on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.